Hey, back on 2 Kook, Revolving Hearts. Today, we'll be discussing a moment that not only shocked the entertainment world but also touched the hearts of millions. It transformed the airport, a place usually filled with ordinary bustle, into an emotional stage that will be remembered for a long time. It was a reunion that no one could have predicted, but when it happened, it felt like time stopped for a moment. A few days earlier, news had spread among fans that Wang Yibo would be returning to China after a series of overseas activities. They prepared banners, slogans, and cameras with the best resolution. They thought it would be just another day to welcome their idol. But what no one knew was that someone had planned to wait for them long before the fans arrived in droves. Xiao Zhan arrived not with a big announcement, not with an entourage of managers or media, but with slow steps, a simple appearance, and a gaze that held many stories. He stood on a quieter side of the airport, as if waiting for someone very important. The fans, who initially didn't notice his presence, were only startled when amateur cameras began to capture his silhouette. Time passed slowly. The airport VIP doors opened. A small scream began to ring out. Camera flashes flashed. Fans began calling Yibo's name, hoping to be the first to catch his smile. But amidst the crowd, there was one figure who didn't scream, just stared, silently. It took a few seconds before their eyes met. Wang Yibo stepped out with a small black suitcase in his hand. He looked a little tired, but when he saw who was standing waiting for him, he stopped dead in his tracks. Around him, the clamor suddenly died down, or perhaps, in that moment, the world truly did fall silent. Xiao Zhan was the first to speak. His voice wasn't loud, but it was enough to be heard clearly through the strange silence. "Welcome back, Yibo." A simple sentence, yet it held 1,000 meanings, 1,000 memories, 1,000 wounds, and healing. That's when the fans realized what was happening. Some covered their mouths with their hands. Some began to cry, unsure how to react. The camera shook from their trembling hands. Others screamed softly, unable to believe that two people who had rarely been seen together in public for years were finally standing together in a real frame. Yibo nodded slowly. Her smile was soft, not the one she usually showed the camera. It was genuine, warm, like someone who had finally returned from a long journey and found their home still there, waiting for them. "Thank you for waiting," she replied softly. The two didn't need to hug. There wasn't any need for excessive touching. The distance between them spoke volumes. But Yibo's eyes were slightly watery, and Xiao Zhan seemed to be holding his breath. They stood there, as if surrendering to feelings they had held back for too long. Several airport officials tried to control the crowd, but no one dared to break up the moment. Even the guards felt the atmosphere. This wasn't just a reunion of two big stars. This was the story of two people who had walked together, then been separated by worlds and circumstances, but whose hearts remained at the same place. Fans began raising their light sticks, not to shout their favorites' names, but to create a soft sea of light. There was no fan war, no chanting. There were only tears of emotion and inexplicable smiles. Xiao Zhan then slowly approached. He didn't speak for long. "Have you eaten?" he asked simply, like someone who always paid attention to the small details of other people's lives. Yibo chuckled, a laugh many have longed for. "Not yet." "Your treat," he replied. And suddenly, the atmosphere at the airport shifted from dramatic to warm. Small laughter began to ring out, a sense of relief. It was as if all the old burdens that had been unspoken that day were beginning to melt away. The two of them began walking side by side toward the exit. Not rushing, not shying away from the cameras, not hiding behind hats or masks. They walked like two ordinary people, rediscovering something they had once lost. Fans followed at a respectful distance, as if aware that what they were witnessing was not just a moment to be showcased, but something sacred. A chapter that had perhaps long been closed, or perhaps had just been reopened. However, after that moment, the internet exploded. Hashtags about their meeting top trending topics on various platforms within minutes. Some cried, some laughed with relief, and others were simply speechless. Many said this wasn't just a coincidence. Others felt that time had finally given them the opportunity for honesty to manifest in a simple form: presence. Feelings that had previously only been visible to the naked eye could finally be witnessed for all to see. The media moved quickly. Photos of them walking side by side filled the headlines. But what was captivating wasn't their style, nor the brands they were wearing. What truly captured the attention were their expressions. They weren't faked. They weren't forced. There was a calmness that only exists between two people who know each other too well to express it all in words. An expression that implied that perhaps everything that had happened before wasn't the end, but rather a pause. Some reporters tried to approach, but upon seeing them so calm, so fragile and human, their steps slowly stopped. It was as if the entire airport was filled with the realization that this wasn't a moment to question or dissect. This was a moment to be lived as it was. Sometimes, genuine feelings don't need explanation or defense. They just need to be allowed to exist. Upon arriving at the parking lot, Xiao Zhan opened the car door with a small, seemingly casual, yet thoughtful gesture. Wang Yibo simply smiled, nodded slowly, and got inside. The cameras were still rolling, but the atmosphere was no longer frenetic. There was a sense that those watching were learning something about patience, about relationships, about how to love without always having to say it out loud. Inside the car, tinted windows obscured the rest of the story that the public didn't need to know. But fans knew one thing for certain. The journey after this wasn't just beginning, but rather a journey that had been underway for a long time, and on that day, they chose to walk side by side again. Sometimes what we need isn't a big answer, but someone who stays when the world changes. Since then, many have said they feel braver to trust again. To believe that a relationship that was once separated isn't over. To believe that sincerity can still grow in silence. To believe that not everything lost has to end as a memory. Some come back. Some find their way home. When they got outside, the afternoon breeze blew. Sunlight fell between them, and somehow, the world seemed a little softer. Not everything needs to be explained. Not every story needs long words. Sometimes, meeting is the explanation itself. And this reunion, it's not just going viral. It's not just a surprise. It's not just content. It's home finally found again. Thank you for watching To Cook You, Revolving Hearts. See you in the next emotional story.